Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Carnac Stones, 3,000 megaliths in Brittany and nobody knows why. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In the Morbihan region of northwestern France, more than 3,000 megalithic stones are arranged in parallel rows stretching across 4 kilometers of open countryside. Some stand 4 meters tall. Many weigh several tons. They were erected between approximately 4,500 and 3,300 BC, predating Stonehenge, predating the Egyptian pyramids, by a Neolithic people who left no written explanation and no surviving oral tradition that connects directly to the monuments. The people who erected the Carnac Stones were not primitive. They organized the transport and erection of thousands of large stones across a 4-kilometre corridor, maintaining consistent alignment and spacing over what must have been generations of effort. They built associated burial mounds at the ends of the rows. They clearly intended something specific. 2 centuries of archaeological study have produced vigorous disagreement about what. The leading theories range from a giant lunar observatory to a military victory monument to a network of seismic sensors built along an active geological fault line. After more than 200 years of research, no consensus exists. The stones stand in their rows, patient and indifferent, as they have for 6,000 years. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction. And to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Catastrophism, the idea that Earth's geological and cultural history has been shaped by sudden, violent events rather than purely gradual processes, was once the dominant paradigm in science. It was then largely displaced by uniformitarianism, the principle championed by Charles Lyell in the 19th century, that the present is the key to the past, and that change occurs slowly and continuously. The pendulum has since swung back. Modern geology and astronomy have confirmed that catastrophic events, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, rapid climate shifts, have profoundly shaped Earth's surface and life upon it. The Chicxulub impact that ended the Cretaceous is the most famous example, but it is not alone. The Younger Dryas cooling event 12,000 years ago caused radical shifts in human habitat within decades, not millennia. The Bronze Age collapse 3,000 years ago ended multiple interconnected civilizations in a generation. These events matter for archaeology because they reset the evidence. A major catastrophe does not merely destroy a civilization, it destroys the record of that civilization. Survivors carry only what they can remember, and memory degrades with each generation. After a few centuries, the grandchildren of survivors have myths where their grandparents had engineering manuals. What archaeologists find when they excavate ancient sites is not the full picture. It is the fragment that survived the last catastrophe. The full picture may be forever gone, preserved only in the ambiguous traces that puzzle researchers to this day. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, Let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Carnac Stones, 3,000 megaliths in Brittany and Nobody Knows Why, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Carnac stone alignments are located near the town of Carnac in the Morbihan department of Brittany, France. Over 3,000 standing stones have been confirmed and catalogued. Historical estimates suggest the original number may have exceeded 10,000 before centuries of farming, road construction, and building removed or buried many. The stones are arranged in parallel rows and divided into three main alignment groups: the Carnac, Camario, and Curlescan alignments. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered radiocarbon dating of organic material associated with the stones, and analysis of pollen trapped in the soil surrounding the monoliths places their erection between approximately 4,500 and 3,300 BC, the Neolithic period. This makes Carnac contemporaneous with or earlier than the earliest phases of Stonehenge, and predating the construction of the Egyptian pyramids by over 1,000 years. The identity and culture of the builders is known only from their material remains. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The stones range in size from small boulders less than 1 meter tall to monoliths exceeding 4 meters in height and several tons in weight. They are granite, a rock not native to the immediate area, meaning the stones were quarried some distance away and transported to the site. The logistics of quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of large stones represent a sustained organizational effort comparable in scale to other major Neolithic monument complexes. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Alexander Thom, a Scottish engineer and amateur archaeologist, conducted a comprehensive survey of the Carnac alignments in 1971, measuring the positions and orientations of the stones with engineering precision. Thom proposed that the alignments functioned as a giant astronomical instrument, specifically a lunar observatory, designed to track the 18-6-year lunar standstill cycle, a recurring astronomical event in which the moon reaches its most extreme rising and setting positions on the horizon. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Pierre Mayreau, a French geophysicist, proposed in the 1990s that the Carnac stones were positioned along active geological fault lines to function as a network for detecting and amplifying earth tremors. Mayreau documented that the stone rows follow the orientation of known fault lines in the Morbihan region, and proposed that the stones were intended to resonate with seismic activity, providing communities with early warning of significant tremors. The hypothesis remains unproven. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: associated tumulus, burial mounds, are found at the western ends of the main alignment groups. The tumulus St. Michel, one of the largest burial mounds in continental Europe, stands at the western end of the Mainek alignment and dates to the same period as the stones. This association between the alignments and monumental funerary structures has led many archaeologists to propose that Carnac functioned primarily in a ceremonial or funerary context, a processional landscape connecting the living to the territories of the dead. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Carnac Stones. 3,000 megaliths in Brittany and Nobody Knows Why. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the Carnac alignments were designed as a giant astronomical instrument to track the 18-6-year lunar standstill cycle, allowing Neolithic astronomers to predict eclipses and regulate agricultural and ritual calendars. Alexander Thom proposed this in 1971 based on his engineering survey. Some archaeologists find partial statistical support in the alignments. Others argue the correlations do not reach the threshold required to confirm intentional astronomical design and may reflect confirmation bias in Thom's selection of reference points. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Carnac is a ceremonial and funerary landscape, a processional route connecting the living community to the burial mounds of ancestors, used for ritual processions that reinforced social cohesion, ancestor veneration, and deterritorial identity. This interpretation is supported by the consistent association of tumulus at the western ends of alignments, the investment in monumental construction over generations, and parallels with other Neolithic monument complexes where processional routes connect settlements to cemeteries. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Carnac stones were positioned along geological fault lines to function as a seismic detection and amplification network, a proposal by French geophysicist Pierre Mayreau. Mayreau documented that the stone rows follow known fault orientations in the Morbihan region, and that granite-standing stones in contact with bedrock along a fault would transmit and potentially amplify ground vibrations. The hypothesis is geologically coherent, but cannot be confirmed or refuted from the archaeological record alone. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Carnac Stones, 3,000 megaliths in Brittany and Nobody Knows Why, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Tom's 1971 astronomical survey found that several sight lines through the Carnac alignments correlate with the rising and setting positions of the moon at its extreme standstill positions on the horizon. The statistical significance of these correlations is disputed. Clive Ruggles, a leading archaeoastronomer, has reviewed Tom's Carnac data and concluded the evidence for intentional astronomical alignment is not statistically robust enough to confirm a designed lunar observatory, though some alignments show genuine correlations. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented geological mapping of the Morbihan region confirms that the Carnac stone rows follow the orientations of known fault lines, Mero's primary observational claim. This is a real geological correlation. Whether it reflects intentional stone placement by Neolithic builders or is coincidental, a result of the landscape topography that both fault lines and human movement tend to follow, cannot be determined from the available evidence. Correlation in this case does not establish the proposed mechanism. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed a geophysical survey of the Carnac alignments conducted in 2019 detected subsurface post holes suggesting that wooden structures, possibly timber uprights or structural frames, once stood alongside the stone rows. This indicates the stone alignments were part of a more complex landscape of mixed stone and timber construction that has since vanished. LiDAR surveys between 2015 and 2020 revealed additional associated monuments, enclosures, mounds, and isolated standing stones not previously recorded in the immediate region. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Carnac Stones, 3,000 megaliths in Brittany, and Nobody Knows Why. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. No scholarly consensus on the purpose of the Carnac alignments has emerged after more than 200 years of systematic research. Thom's astronomical hypothesis retains partial support. Meroe's seismic hypothesis is considered interesting but unproven. The funerary and processional interpretation is widely held but not confirmed. UNESCO has placed Carnac on its tentative World Heritage List while a management plan is developed. Ongoing LiDAR mapping has substantially expanded the known extent of the monument complex and revealed associated structures that require reassessment of the site's total scale. Carnac receives hundreds of thousands of visitors annually and is the most visited megalithic site in continental Europe. The stones stand without explanation, which is precisely why they continue to compel attention. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Carnac Stones, 3,000 megaliths in Brittany and Nobody Knows Why, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Carnac Stones ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.